addiction, prevention, recovery.
Welcome to the Recovery Rebirth Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Recovery Rebirth Podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Jillian.
Welcome, listeners. Thanks for joining us on our anniversary show.
Yeah!
Yes, it has been a full year of the Recovery Rebirth Podcast. This is airing pretty close to our anniversary. I think our first show aired somewhere right before Christmas, and this show is going to air right before Christmas again. So welcome, listeners. Thank you for those who have listened to every single episode. Just a quick note on our stats. We are international. You know, people from all over the globe are listening in, and we're grateful for that. The United States, of course, is our biggest audience, but and we're also noticed that most listeners are listening to entire episodes, and we appreciate you sticking with us. We try to keep these at an appropriate length so that everybody can enjoy without having to cut off short. So thanks for listening for entire episodes and downloads.
Yeah, thank you, listeners.
So don't forget to share. You have social media, don't you, Jillian?
Yeah, I use it every once in a while. Yeah, yes. Instagram, the Facebook, that's kind of that's kind of the extent of mine, but I know I
just posted our first promo on TikTok.
What? We're on TikTok?
Well, I posted a promo for our show on TikTok.
Do I have to get TikTok now? I'll never get anything done.
Oh, gosh, TikTok is like, yeah.
Time suck?
Yeah, do you want an hour of your life that you'll never get back to just going through videos?
Dude, I won't do it. I don't specifically because I know myself, and I will go down a wormhole for 3 hours and get nothing done. And so, but I'm glad that we're on TikTok because I know there are a lot of people on there.
Yeah, so please share our podcast with friends. You know, podcasts are better with friends.
For sure.
So it is the holiday season when we're recording and releasing this episode, and the holiday season can be a very joyous time. It can be a fun time where friends and family get together and a lot of frivolity and reunions and so forth. It can also be a very sad time. It can be a very depressing time. And for just about everybody, because the nature of the end of the year, it can be stressful.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
So, I don't know, Jillian, you have holiday stress, right? Everybody has holiday stress, don't they?
I mean, a little, but a lot less now than I used to. And we can get into that later. But for me, I've worked very hard to simplify. So I don't do anything out of obligation at the holidays. I only do things if they bring me joy. So, for example, I haven't sent Christmas cards, holiday cards in years. Some years I bake, some years I don't. But there definitely was a time in my life where the holidays could bring about a lot of stress because I felt obligated to do things and overscheduled and, stressed out about money I didn't have to buy gifts. But specifically, the stress for me was related to the family dynamics, which we will get into in this episode.
Yeah, there's personal stress, but then there's also like business stress too. I'm a small business owner, and the end of the year just adds extra layers of stress. You're worried about your taxes, you're worried about bills due, a lot of renewals come in for subscriptions, and you get hit with these bills, and then some businesses where people work for other people, if you're in any kind of marketing or sales business or God forbid retail at this time of year, the push is on, like do more, we got to make our numbers for the end of the year, come on, push harder. Right. And then you add the extra layer of complexity with personal stuff, like you mentioned family, the gift buying. A lot of times we're in a mode of poor diet and a lack of exercise.
Yes.
And then also, our podcast airs out of Michigan, so we're in the Midwest. If anyone out there in the rest of the country has experienced a Midwest winter, that gray haze of clouds, that just sits over top of us quite often, and the days are shorter. It's dark at 5 o'clock. It's just it adds to seasonal depression.
Seasonal affective dysfunction.
And a lot of people, by the time 7 o'clock rolls around, you're feeling like it's midnight.
Yes. Absolutely. This is the first year I think that it's really gotten to me. So as a redhead, which you can't tell as a listener unless you, I guess, see one of our info, like our graphics.
Our picture is up.
Our picture is up. So as a redhead, fun fact, we generate a little more vitamin D as like it's an adaptation. But so that's kind of the cause of that seasonal affective dysfunction, I think is what it's called. A lot of people, a huge majority of the population is affected by the lack of sunlight. But this is the first year that I've really been like leaving work and it's dark already. And I'm like, wow, it must be so late. Oh, it's 7 p.m.
Right. 7 p.m. feels like midnight.
It does.
There's something about daylight, and the vitamin D and so forth. But for people who are in addiction, at this time, our recording date is early in December. At this time, 18 years ago, I was dying. I was miserable. I was drinking myself to death. And I wasn't leaving the house. The holidays for the longest time were horrible for me. As a person in long-term recovery, it's changed. I enjoy the holidays now. But I also was quite miserable. I had dealt with loss in my family, as you've heard in previous episodes, my mom dying, my father dying. So the holidays wasn't this joyous family gathering for me, a lot of times. Now, luckily I'm close to my stepmom and dad now, and we'll be going for a visit for Christmas to enjoy their company. But, a lot of times I was just miserable around the holidays, and any kind of holiday cheer just made me feel more and more depressed and anxious about my own life and how horrible it was. That's, of course, come around full circle. I'm pretty joyous during the holiday season. It's a time to reunite with friends and family and so forth.
Well, you've cultivated quite a family in recovery, though. I know this about you. You are very active in service work, and you really have worked to form those connections and nurture those relationships. So you have created your own family. So kudos to you, because I know that. I know your history. I know about all that loss, and I can understand why the holidays were very hard for you for many years. And I'm glad that now there's a lot more joy in your holidays.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We were talking right before we hit the record button, and Jillian, I think you were sharing some family stories of living with an alcoholic that, around the holiday season. And I'd like to get into that in a second. I'm just giving you a heads up. But I want to kind of define this stress, because it's not about worry and it's not about anxiety. We did a whole episode on anxiety. This is about the extra pressure in the world that comes upon us with the holiday season. And some symptoms, if you want some warning signs. If you feel bursts of anger or severe depression that is not typical depression, just you feel like crying, you feel like short-tempered, or perhaps eating too much or not eating enough because you're under pressure. You'll skip a meal, or you have a loss of appetite, or you're just eating the stress away. Some people do that. Or loss of interest in daily activities. If you're feeling guilty or helpless, or worse yet, hopeless, maybe you're avoiding family and friends, you're isolating. Those are symptoms of the stress that can come on from holiday season. So, and of course, as an active alcoholic, at that, back in the day, I didn't notice that because I was drunk. Right. I was feeling all that, but I wasn't really feeling all that. So tell me a little bit about your experience from the other side of the table.
Yeah, well, far less fun, I can tell you that, because as the codependent, and I remember years ago going to a therapist who specialized in addiction and recovery with my former ex with my ex who was an active alcoholic, who was kind of reluctantly going to the sessions. But I remember him saying, for when I'm active in my disease, in codependency, like I'm miserable. And when he's active in his, he's like, oblivious. Like he's fine. Like he's numbing out. He's not feeling any pain. Meanwhile, I'm seething with resentment and anger and,
No, come on.
Yeah, true story. True story. So very different experiences from that side of the table. And I'm going to back it up just a second, because there is more like pre relationship with an alcoholic. My family gatherings when I was younger with my mom and my brother. So they both had, my mom for me mostly it was her complete lack of filter related to her mental illness, and she would like talk openly about her sex life, and just it was anyhow. So that was
at Christmas.
At Christmas at the dinner table. So that was just always super fun and awkward. Luckily, it was usually like there weren't. I guess when I was dating, I was like, oh my gosh, do I want to bring this guy to Christmas because he's gonna hear my mom talk about her sex life and she's gonna be high, like because my mom loved to smoke pot. She swears she wasn't addictive, but I don't know about that. So there was that, and then my brother's food addiction, which I've talked in prior podcasts. Like my brother's food addiction, and to watch the gluttony and him active in his disease and his addiction was really difficult for me for many, many years too. So like it was just, and I kind of swung the other way where I was like borderline anorexic when I was younger, but that was like pre-alcoholic. I would still watch my brother, like how many plates of food he would consume, just like I later did with an alcoholic and their drinks. So I've had a long history of awkward, uncomfortable holidays due to addictions and my codependency, but specifically with the alcoholic, at his family gatherings, it would just be, I would, just brace myself, and I would be on pins and needles because I knew there was going to be drinking, because as you know, alcoholism is a family disease, and there's usually not just like the lone alcoholic in the family tree. There's a lot.
Right.
And, he had a father who also struggled with that, and uncle, like probably the other people in the family member. So I would observe like, the drinking and then the fighting among his family. So whether it was him and his mom, him and his dad, him and his sister and his dad, his sister, it was just, and of course, like a good little codependent, there were probably, I don't know if I tried to be mediator, or, try to referee, but there got to a point once I got into recovery, I remember I would just take like my son, who was pretty young at the time when we first, quite young. He was like 5 when we started dating. And then my ex's niece, I would just take the kids and go in the other room and like play games or something, because I realized once I got into recovery, like I'm powerless over their drinking. Like there's nothing I can do about it. I'm powerless over their fighting. So I just kind of excused myself and tried to find a little area of solace with the kids, because short of just skipping the get together because I didn't want to deal with the drinking drama, I would just kind of excuse myself with the kids, or maybe like take them for a walk or something, because that powerlessness is very real, and I'm grateful to not be dealing with that anymore. Currently, my holidays are a lot more peaceful with a family where we don't have any active addictions. We just had Thanksgiving, and it was a very, very peaceful gathering. But there was a time that the holidays brought me a ton of stress. Well, that out of control and not being, able to control a situation or the outcome of a situation, that definitely adds. That's a cause of stress. Yes.
And did you drink at all during that time, though?
Sometimes, like early in our relationship, before I realized that alcohol was really a problem for him. And then I probably like enabled a little bit, but then I got to a point where I would abstain, right? But then I would sit there, silently judging them. So that's not good either. But yeah, I would oftentimes, there got to a point where I wouldn't drink anymore. Like there's nothing I could do about his drinking or their drinking, but I wouldn't drink. 'Cause I don't have the same, like I don't numb out with alcohol. Like it was not a solution in my mind. So I would just often just sit and watch them. And then, when it was just he and I would, try to hide the alcohol or whatever. All those wonderful codependent solutions that don't really work.
Right.
But once I was aware that I was probably part of the problem and enabling his drinking, I chose not to drink. But again, I mean, they always did. I joke that like any day that ends with a Y was a good day to drink in his family.
Yeah.
It didn't matter the occasion. Any day that ended in Y.
Well, I drank, especially during the holidays, I would drink every day, a little something. There's always a party going on or a gathering or a work thing.
Yep.
Luckily today I don't have to worry about that sort of thing or who I need to apologize to or,
right.
a trip to the HR department to talk over what you did at the Christmas party, whatever. But I mean, a lot of people go through that. And then, of course, people who are not alcoholics but overdo it at the holidays.
Yes.
They can add a layer of stress. We used to call those amateurs. The amateurs are out, on Christmas and New Year's, but people tend to overdo it with alcohol, and I find it interesting. You actually went the opposite route. You went for escape rather than going, and drinking with them so that you can calm yourself down.
Yeah. Because it didn't calm me down. It just would make me more stressed and more likely to probably blurt out something that I didn't mean and then have to make, I thought I meant at the time. So, that's just adding fuel to the fire. So for me, it was, I guess, avoidance or escape, but it felt like a better alternative than me sitting and stewing in my resentment and judgment.
No, that the holidays are a powder keg.
Yes.
So so for you to sit there and build up the resentment and the anger and have that come out, with alcoholics in the room and you've got the family stress, that wouldn't be healthy for anybody.
Nope.
One of the things they tell you, because we always try to provide solutions, so the experts will tell you that taking a break is a good thing. When you're feeling stressed, taking a break, change your atmosphere, go for a walk, go to a different room. If you're in an office, get out of the office for a minute. Say, just need some fresh air. If you're with family, usually you're in a house or an apartment, take a step outside for a moment and just get away for a moment. Exercise is actually very good for stress. If you're feeling that, wound up tension, maybe if you're a morning workout person, you throw in a little afternoon workout or switch up and go to the afternoon workout because that's stress builds up during the course of a day.
Right. Yeah.
Getting enough sleep.
Oh my gosh, yes.
How do you deal with that? Because sometimes we're so pressured we don't get enough sleep. How do you do with that?
Well, and I'm in such a different place now because partly because of recovery, partly because of simplifying my life. And I'll get to this in a minute because there's a when you're a single person at the holidays, it's not stress so much, but there's a different it has a different feeling. But when I was partnered up with somebody who was active in their addiction, when I was active in my codependency, like I didn't sleep well, or say, for example, when we were like separated, but we were still, he'd come to visit and he'd show up drunk and then I'd send him away. And then, he would literally say, I remember him saying to me, like, well, if I get in an accident, it's your fault. Like, what if I get into an accident? Like, well, you drove over here. So, and then feeling nervous about like, oh, should I have done that? Because what if he does hurt himself or somebody else? And it would tie my stomach in knots, worried about if he was out drinking and driving, or the other thing is that, worrying about if he was contacting other women, because that was a part of our relationship too. So there used to be a time that I didn't get much sleep, but now, part of it's being single. A lot of it's being in recovery for multiple years and simplifying my life. Like I sleep pretty well these days, other than like at my age. Sometimes hormones will interrupt my sleep, but I don't have the life stress that's interfering with my sleep like I used to.
So let me interrupt and ask you a question, if I may, because you're a single mom. You are and were
yes.
and still are a single mother. And I know we have some single mom listeners.
Yes.
So what tips would you give a single mother dealing, because you got to deal with kids during the holidays and all of the stress and everything, and having your own sanity in question at times because you're dealing with everybody else. What would you say to single mothers?
Well, and to be fair though, my youngest is 20, so I'm definitely I'm a parent of 2 adult children at this point. But when my son was younger, and a lot of it is just like simplifying things, like I had mentioned in the beginning. Like I let go of anything that felt like an obligation, anything that caused me more stress, like any of those I have to's, like I have to do cards, I have to get gifts for all of these people for the kind of like outside of family. I have to, because I would try to, I was just overloading myself with things I didn't really have to do, sending cards, making cookies, all the things. So I just would try to really simplify things when my son was younger, and my daughter, they're 9 years apart, so I wasn't doing a great job of simplifying when she was younger. I was definitely more sleep deprived and trying to be superwoman and do all of the things I felt like I had to do. Now I do things that I want to do. And that's been a big shift for me. And also, so my heart goes out to you, single moms, single parents that have the young children that, I didn't have a great co-parenting relationship with my exes. And that makes it for a lot more stressful during the holidays and dividing time, like it's my year that I don't have, my son for Christmas. And that could cause me to be really sad. I mean, it can get very lonely at the holidays for single people. I mean, I know, what that's like, Dom, sometimes to, be.
Yeah, I'm the other side of the spectrum on that.
Yeah.
I was alone.
Yeah.
And felt at times, especially early on, I felt very, very alone. Loneliness and despair would set in.
Yes.
I'm one of those seasonal depression type people, so when it starts getting dark early, I already slow down. My whole metabolism slows down. I have to, at this point in my life, I have to exercise to keep that metabolism up so that I can stay in good spirits. But back before that, years ago, I would just feel so hopeless and helpless at the holidays.
Yes.
And that's why I think I had that anger and resentment when anybody was in a good mood at the holidays.
Right.
Because I didn't have, the stress came from not having.
Right.
So your stress came from having all this stuff. And,
right.
And I have to do this and I have to do that. My stress came from, I don't have anything to do. What am I going to do? My life stinks. I don't have anybody, no significant other, nothing. And ironically, I pushed girlfriends that I was dating younger away. Yeah. Because my despair would kick in, and I would push them away, and they wouldn't understand why I'm pushing them away.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It was just very poor behavior on my part at that time. And,
but you were in survival mode, so.
That was it. It was survival mode.
Be kind to your younger self.
Well, you can't hope for a better past. You can only
Sure
plan.
Can. I did it for years. Failed every single time. I wanted to touch on something, though, so you and I felt, now granted, being single without children is a different experience than being single with children, because you have automatic companionship, even if it drives you nuts sometimes as a single parent. But something for me that I've struggled with a lot, especially since becoming single again, like after this breakup from this long term. Now, granted, there was a lot of dysfunction, a lot of heartache, a lot of frustration, resentment, but there was also a lot of love in that relationship and some great companionship. So once I became single again, the social media, what one of my sponsors calls compare and despair. So when you're scrolling through your social media, so for me, when I see all of these happy families at the holidays, right here, there for their family photos, and I would just be like, I don't have that, and I would feel so lonely, and so because with my kids, I have 2 exes, so I have, I have 2 kids from 2 different dads because I like to keep it interesting. Why not?
That's a separate episode,
Good gracious, yeah. So there would be family photos weren't really a thing for us. So I would compare my life, like my first sponsor said, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. Is that how that goes? Because I know that a lot of people show the highlight reels. You could have this photo of this perfectly happy, harmonious family, and behind the scenes, people are fighting or drinking, or you don't know what's really going on.
Right, a photo is a hundredth of a second in an entire chaotic situation, perhaps.
Yes, but for me, and as that single person, I see these couples. I hated New Year's Eve for so many years. And side note, we've talked about this in this podcast. Was 2014 when I got a call from the other woman when my alcoholic ex and I were in a reconciliation period, I thought. And I got a call from this other woman on New Year's Eve 2014. And, I felt like I was in a bad rom-com. And that was that began my codependent rock bottom. So for years after that event, I dreaded it. It was maybe 4 or 5 years. Thankfully, I was in recovery 2 weeks when that event happened. Thank God. But I hated New Year's Eve. I'm I don't want to see all these happy freaking couples kissing and good for you. I'm going to go home. And I didn't even have a cat to go home to at the time. I'm great. F you guys. Sorry. Right. I was just very bitter and and I would just feel so lonely and whatever. But so social media, sometimes social media consumption at the holidays is not great for our mental health, depending on where we are in our journey. And if we're that single person who struggles at the holidays, sometimes I just need to kind of mute it for a while. I'm because I'm going to get the flood of all these happy families and happy couples. And then I'm just going to feel something's wrong with me or my life. And that's not true.
I think you brought up a great point with social media. Social media is a great way to keep connected to people. If you want to, I have people from all over the country, if not the globe, that I keep in touch with via social media and keep up with what's going on with them. However, remember that is only, as you said, a highlight reel. It's like watching a movie. You have to remember when the movie's over and the credits are rolling, it was a movie. It was a story. It wasn't reality.
Yeah.
Reality can be very different. People can post a quick smile even though they're in deep depression.
Yes.
And everything's fine. And that's why we encourage, the episode that aired just before this was on suicide.
Yeah.
And people can get very suicidal around the holidays, and we encourage people to get help. If you're feeling holiday stress and you feel like you need help, if your stress goes to despair, make sure you reach out before you hit the rock bottom, because that rock bottom might be one you can't come back from. So social media can really mess with people's heads. I have people who say, "Oh, I hate Facebook. I hate Facebook." Scroll, man. Use your finger or your mouse or whatever. Scroll. Don't sit there and linger on stuff that makes you angry. I think people sit there and they take a little taste of some political post they don't like, and they wallow in the anger. And I have already scrolled past that. I'm okay, I just want to see what's going on in my friends' lives. I want to, be able to keep up. Oh, there's a picture of Jillian baking cookies. I hope I get some. That.
You will.
Thank you. That was a plug for cookies.
Yes, I will bring
Jillian
you cookies
bakes
this year.
the best cookies. But keep scrolling. Don't sit there and linger and make your own feeling worse.
Do not compare and despair, friends.
Right, and that's a big one. The other thing that I would throw out is real deadlines versus self-imposed deadlines, which create stress.
Yeah.
I mean, December 31st. We can't change that. That is the last day of the calendar year, and everything turns over to a new year on January 1st. You cannot change that. That's the way the calendar works. Yeah. But we self-impose a deadline, like I have to buy this gift by this date, I have to do this with this and that, and I have to, and I have to. Not I get to, I have to, I have to, I have to. Those are self-imposed deadlines. Christmas is going to be on the 25th.
Every year, without fail.
Without fail, that's the day. If you celebrate other holidays, you got Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all of the different holidays. They fall on the days that they fall on. That's the way the calendar works. But we self-impose so many deadlines on ourselves. And I'm not saying turn into a procrastinator and put everything off to the last day, because I remember Christmas Eve shopping.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
One time on December 24th, I am racing around trying to find the perfect gift for like 6 people, at different times.
Gift cards all around.
Oh, well, gift cards weren't as plentiful back then, but now, and buy gift cards. You could stay home and buy them online. It makes things a little easier, but the self-imposed deadlines. I think you said it, Jillian, in your notes. Excuse me if I'm reading your notes back to you, but you said to have sliding fluid plans. Make your plans fluid so that you don't self-impose more stress.
Right.
Take a break, step away, go for the walk.
Cuddle your cat. Sorry, for those of you who are cat lovers like me.
Pet the dog.
Yeah,
for dog lovers, pet the dog.
Yep.
The dog. Taking the dog for a walk, if you're a dog owner, is and maybe you could borrow a dog or something. You just say, I've got to step out and walk the dog, but you don't own a dog. I'm dog sitting for the weekend.
If you want to see happiness, watch a dog in the snow, especially like the first snow of the season.
Oh, dogs love Christmas rolling around.
So great.
Cats are a little bit sketchy when it comes to the change in weather.
I haven't tossed mine in a snowbank yet. We'll see how that goes.
I
Just
definitely
kidding, I'm not going to.
That may result in an entire episode on pets, dealing with pets in recovery. And a lot of people have life changes going on.
Yes. And painful anniversaries, right? We talked about this earlier too. And whether or not you lost somebody close to the holidays, that first year or second or 10th year, it doesn't matter. I mean, approaching those holidays that you spent with somebody that you loved very much, and now they're no longer there, it can be like, I just had a little glimmer, a little bit of grief a couple of days ago thinking about my brother. This will be my second holiday without him, second Christmas, so holiday season. And as much as his food addiction would stress me out so bad at the holidays, it really, really would. Like, I miss my brother. I wish he was still here. I wish he was still here to tease me. He was a funny guy. And he had all these like little nicknames. He called me Stuart, like Stuart Smalley, because of me being in 12-step programs. But I miss his playful teasing and I miss his jokes. So for so many people, whether or not, and I feel doubly hard if you lose somebody right around a holiday. If an anniversary of like a death or a major breakup happens to coincide with a holiday, that makes it even harder.
Yeah, I would imagine that definitely makes it more difficult. Usually, a lot of couples, even if they're fighting, stick it through the holidays just because they don't want to add more stress to their stress. Right. It's like, let's just get through the holidays.
Exactly.
My rule of thumb, in not that I'm the professional dater, but in dating, I always say you got to get through at least 2 sets of holidays together, because I see people rushing into, we're getting married, and they go through 2 sets of full holidays together from January to December. Yeah. And then make sure that you can deal with all the holidays with each other and each other's friends, relatives, whatever. At least 2 sets of holidays to see if it's going to work.
Yeah, because then you might be throwing kids into the mix at some point, and that's going to magnify the stress.
Oh yeah.
As wonderful as the kids are.
Yeah, you and then you're adding to their stress and their trauma if you end up breaking up.
Yeah.
So coming from broken households, understand what that. A lot of us in recovery come from broken households.
Yep.
So the relationship piece. The other piece that I just want to touch on real quick before we start thinking about wrapping up here is finances.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The money part of the holidays, between end of year bills and running up a bill for, do you have to buy the gift that's going to impress everybody or whatever? You got to have the best of the best. You're sitting there overspending just to make an impression. Does that make the best sense? Is that really good decision making?
Right.
Especially when you got your own bills and your own stress. Inflation this year has been at an all-time high. I mean, just buying a bag of groceries is is insane. So I would say in my infinite wisdom in recovery is, be reasonable with yourself.
Yeah.
So that you are able to maybe do more things for less money than trying to make the big bang with the, best gift for so-and-so or whatever. The only person I have to impress is God. That's it. The God of my understanding is who I have to impress. That's it.
And he doesn't care about Black Friday specials. Or she. Or they.
Oh, right. They don't care about Black Friday specials in heaven. And for anybody who's dealing with the family loss, it is real. We understand that. We feel that. The loss of a family member is tragic, or even a dear friend that you remember around the holidays. I lost a very dear friend in recovery shortly after Thanksgiving, and it was always, Thanksgiving would have that reminiscing time. The method of coping that I have found most effective for me, at least, is to not try to chase the feeling away, but embrace it for the moment. If you need to shed a tear or two, go ahead and do that, but don't wallow in it.
Right.
Don't be like an elephant rolling around in the mud. Don't let that eat you up alive, because that's not healthy either.
Right.
And then what happens is we get into our other addictions, whether it be food or alcohol or other people or whatever it is.
Yes.
So, what advice would you have for folks during this holiday season, Jillian?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to, for me, it's keep it simple. Just keep it simple, because and it's very counterculture to, because we live in such a capitalistic society, right, where it's all about consume and buy, and for me, my gift every year is time with the people I love. So if I can have a day with my dad and both of my kids, and maybe like my bonus kids, my daughter's engaged, my son has a girlfriend, and my niece, like that's always the best day ever for me. And if there's some gifts involved, great. But I've made a very intentional effort for 15-ish longer years, even just to keep it simple. It's not about the stuff. It's about the time with the people that I love. And again, this year I might do a handful of holiday cards because I feel like doing it, because I want to do it, not because I have to do it.
Right.
And I understand that it's not as easy for somebody who has a family with young children and obligations with in-laws and all these things. Like my experience is very different from others' experience. I have grown children. I'm single. So my life is by default simpler than other people's lives. But where possible, where you can simplify and not do things out of obligation, I really hope that can help lower your stress and make room for more joy and peace in your life.
As a child, growing up, my youngest years that I can remember, when my parents were together and after they split up, okay, the things that I remember the most and cherish the most about the time with mom or dad or both, and even my stepmom being in the mix at the time, growing up, because I was young when I met her. I don't remember the gifts as much as I remember the time spent. Yeah. The fun part was not what was in the box. It was that I had a box that I could open in front of them and show my joy. Yeah. So really, you hit the nail on the head. It's about the people in your life. I don't care about things anymore. I care about quality time with the people I care about.
Amen.
When hopefully a long time from now, I'll be on my deathbed a long time from now, and I'll be thinking about all the relationships I had and the people's lives that I got to touch, and that will matter to me far more than anything that was ever wrapped in paper.
Yes.
So cherish the people around you. Enjoy and if you're alone, please don't isolate. I encourage you. A suggestion, as we have a program of suggestions, you know, suggest that you get out somewhere. Even if you have to go do volunteer work to be with strangers, just get out amongst people and just exchange that energy. Sitting alone doesn't work. I did it for too long.
Yeah.
And it drove me to almost the grave. You know, don't sit alone.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Very bad. Bad idea. So happy anniversary, Jillian.
Happy anniversary, Dominic.
1 year anniversary. What a great gift. We've been able to do this podcast for 1 year. And our commitment to our audience is we will move forward, bringing you hopefully interesting and provocative topics in recovery. We'd encourage you to suggest topics too. Is there anything you'd like us to talk about or research? We do some research before we go on the air. Please send an email. I created an email address, podcast@vivacityventures.com, podcast@vivacityventures.com, or you can just get on the website, get a hold of me, and shoot us a topic. Let us know what you think. You know, we have a website there for a reason, and want you to, you know, tell us what you'd like to hear.
Yes.
So thanks, Jillian, for sticking with it for this year, and here's to the next year.
Yes, and listeners, I'm wishing you a low stress, high joy, very peaceful holiday season.
I wish you, listeners, the same. I wish you all the best. May this holiday season be a holiday season that brings you true happiness, joyousness, and freeness. Take care.
Be well, everyone.